Welcome to the Hello Sunday podcast with me, Nikki Hayden. This is the podcast that discusses everything self-development, spirituality and sobriety. And it wouldn't be me without a little sprinkling of humour. Whether you are just starting out on your journey of self-development or have been exploring these topics for years, are completely alcohol-free or just curious about living a more sober lifestyle, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'll be exploring topics in both solo episodes and with some amazing guest experts. So if you like what you hear, then please subscribe, rate and review. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome. Welcome back to another episode of Hello Sunday. How are we all? Have you had a good week? Has it been busy? Are you listening to this at the weekend on the Sunday that it's released and glad of the downtime like I am? It's been a week, guys. It's been a week. Nothing, how do I put this? Nothing, well, actually, no, something has happened, which I'll tell you about in a moment, but nothing major has happened in terms of some of the stuff that I told you about pre-Christmas with like family health stuff. So technically, I feel like, actually, I'm going to correct that. I felt like I shouldn't be feeling the way that I was feeling this week because I felt guilty that I've got so much good in my life. I've got my husband, my home, my beautiful baby dog, my friends, my family, my health, all of the stuff that we should be grateful for every single day that we often take for granted. However, sometimes when things happen, it's just an accumulation and it's just that little, I guess, kind of, the build-up of like the compound effect of little things happening. So we can take the compound effect as like a positive and do small things every day that build up to a big result or success. But it also can happen the other way, like with negative stuff. And just a few things have happened this week, professionally, personally, stuff that's just been like a bit like, like tough, challenging, stuff that's pissed me off, things that have just been like, oh God, got to deal with that. And it got to a point on Thursday this week where something happened with my husband's job, which I'll talk you through in a moment. And yeah, it just all got a little bit much, let's say. And I ended up chatting to I was going to say my business coach, but she's more of a life coach, to be honest, about it. And I was crying, not going to lie. I had a little cry to her, just a bit of a frustrated cry more than anything. And she said something to me, which really resonated, and it was a bit of a light bulb moment, and I wrote it down and I thought that is what I'm going to talk about on the pod this week. And that is, you need to build your toolkit or your arsenal of tools that you can rely on when life happens. So you need to build your toolkit of stuff you can rely on when life happens. And I realised in that moment that something else that I'd heard a few weeks ago suddenly was ringing true. And that is, if you only have a hammer, you'll see everything as a nail. Which basically means you're over-relying on one tool all the time, one go-to. Which, let's be honest, quite a few of us do, don't we? And I'm not just talking about in self-development, I'm talking about in life generally. So yeah, just a few things had happened. I think obviously there's stuff going on personally with like the family health stuff, and then the reality of having a dog that we can't leave on its own at the moment had started hitting me because the weather had been a bit nicer and there was a couple of things that I was thinking about doing. I've been invited to a business event midweek, which I'd had to say no to because I can't leave him, and it just got a little bit much. And then on Thursday, we also found out that a deal that my husband had been working on for work, a contract over the last few months that he had closed a couple of weeks before, there was a legal issue with the business, and it basically meant that it wasn't going to go ahead. And this was pretty much his revenue target for the year. It had opened up doors. He'd got a job offer off the back of it. There was just a lot of stuff that was really, really positive that had come off the back of that journey and that experience that suddenly was all just taken away. And it was like 20 minutes before I went onto the call with my business stroke life coach, and it just all felt a little bit much. I think, we're looking to, I've made no secret of the fact that we're looking to move house this year. That would have really helped towards that. It filled me with absolute joy that he was just getting recognised and that it built his confidence, and just there was so many positives, and it just felt like it had been snatched away. And at that moment, in that moment, I felt really sorry for myself. I felt sorry for us. I felt really down. I spiraled into, I guess, just a real negative mindset. There was just loads of stuff that was kind of in the background that then all felt so much bigger and unable to deal with. And it just put me into a real place of negativity. And anyway, I jumped on the call with Rebecca, who I will put her details in the show notes, by the way, because she's amazing. And I've invested in coaching with her last month, and already I'm feeling the benefits of having that sounding board and having that guide and that advice and being, really vulnerable with her. So I'll pop her details in. If any of you are keen to explore that or have questions, then drop me a message, let me know. But she just basically held space and was like, yeah, this is a lot. It's a lot. And rather than doing what a lot of coaches do, which is sort of asking, well, what do you think you should do? How do you think you should manage it? And making you find all the answers. She just gave me some really fucking good advice, to be honest, and some guidance, and was like, right, here's what I think you need to do. And there was things in there that I knew how to do, and I knew like those tools were in existence, but I'd just either forgotten about them or not used them for that long that they weren't coming to mind. And then there was some other things where she just put stuff into perspective, and I just thought, yeah, I needed somebody else to do that for me. So how do we go about building a toolkit? Like when life happens, when the shit hits the fan, or all of these little things happen, or maybe one massive blob of crap just lands on you and you're just like, I just want to give up. I don't know how to navigate this. What are the things that we can use? How do we build that toolkit, and how do we know what to use? Because it's all very well me sitting here saying you need to build a toolkit of stuff, but actually like how you do that is the important thing, isn't it? So for me, I think having somebody, if you can afford to do that, or not even afford to do that, like this could be a friend, although I would say just be really careful about unloading on people if you haven't checked in with, where they're at and their stuff. And also finding friends that maybe get the problem or the issue. Like there's no point in talking to, I don't know, a friend that is like not, well, actually is there? I was going to say not business minded about like a business problem, but actually, do you know what? There probably is, because it doesn't necessarily need to be a business tool or it doesn't need to be somebody that understands your world. But I guess just be a little bit selective, because also the other thing is I have had people in my life previously where I've unloaded kind of problems or spoken to about challenges, and it's almost like they relish in the issue and don't really want to help you get out of it because it makes them feel better. So just be conscious of that. But for me, having somebody like Rebecca that could just hold that space and really take a very objective view of, because she's not emotionally involved, right, of where is this coming from? Where is the real frustration, the real upset, the real like fucking pissed offness coming from? And give me some context and help me to see the wood for the trees a bit. That for me was probably the most important element of being able to deal with it, because it was somebody going, this feels shit right now, but actually you need to take a step back and realise in context some of the stuff that you've dealt with in your past or are currently dealing with in your personal life, this is like insignificant in comparison. And she didn't use those words, but that was like what she was implying. So having somebody to do that is really important. And then the other thing that she did for me, which again, I know how to do this. I've done a whole episode on this. I've talked about this. I tell other people how to do this. I didn't do it myself in the moment because I was caught up with the emotions, is to reframe, or as she puts it, catch and replace the thought. So at that point, when we got the news about the contract and the deal falling through and it impacting the job offer, my immediate reaction, my husband's immediate reaction was, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could have happened. This is literally like going to ruin everything, and go into that like spiral of, how are we going to afford to move house now? Is this going to impact, the mortgage that we can get and the house that we can get? Are we going to be stuck here for another 2 years? And you know the one, right? We've all done it. And what she said to me, which is what I would have said to somebody else who had come to me, but actually was unable to do it for myself in that moment, was, this could be the best thing that has happened or could happen. This could be redirecting you from something that could have happened later down the line. And the reason the contract failed, and I don't really understand the ins and outs, but it was a legal issue. And she was like, he could have signed that contract and gone to work for that business, and that could have happened and he could have been out of a job. Or he could have signed the contract, been 3 or 4 months down the line with getting the platform or whatever it was, it implemented, and it happened then, and he's 3 or 4 months down the line and wasted more time. But you have to let go of the need to know what that reason is, because the likelihood is we're never going to find out. We're never going to know the reason why it didn't go ahead. You just have to trust that that is the best thing that is possibly happening for you in that moment. So catching the thought of, oh my God, this is the worst thing, and actually replacing it with something that is way more positive is just so important. For those of you that are regular listeners to the show, or maybe you know me personally, you won't have been able to get away without hearing me talk about Simprove. Simprove is a scientifically backed, water-based probiotic drink. You drink it daily, and it has been scientifically proven to help with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, pain. It was actually a dietitian friend of mine that introduced it to me last year, and I honestly wouldn't be without it now. It's helped with my energy, with my bloating, it's helped with my immune system, and also things like my skin. The list is honestly endless. Now, I have got a code for you. So if you'd like to try Simprove, you can get 50%, that's a massive 50% off your first 3 month subscription by going on to simprove.com and putting in the code Nikki50. That's NIKKI50, or clicking the link in the show notes. The other thing that I then went on to do is to take back the power to create a sense of empowerment within myself, and in this instance within my husband, around the situation. So we weren't just reacting, which we did in the moment. It's natural. It's a reflex reaction. You're just going to react how you react. But taking that time to look at, okay, so that didn't happen. That isn't going to happen. This isn't panning out how we thought it was. But actually, we can still get to where we want to be, right? It's January. We've got the whole pretty much 9-10 months of this year to decide what we're doing about remortgaging or moving house. The mortgage isn't due till January. It takes 3 or 4 months to find, buy and move into a house. We've got time. How do we now get to where we want to be based on the situation as it is, rather than the situation that we thought was going to pan out? And in doing that, it's like rerouting your sat nav. You are taking back the power of the situation, rather than just giving it all up to, oh, well, that's not happening, so we're fucked and that's going to ruin everything. It's making a conscious decision on how you respond and how you move forwards. which again, in that instance of getting bad news, you're not going to do. It's like my sister-in-law's diagnosis. In the moment that she got that news, the whole world fell from underneath her, and my brother, no doubt. But actually, they've both taken back the power now and made a conscious decision to just take it one step at a time. She's doing whatever she can do in terms of like diet and lifestyle. My brother's gone back to work to make sure that they're financially secure through this whole process. There's so many things that you can do. Yes, there are certain things that are completely out of our control, but there's often things that we can do to make ourselves feel like we have an element of control and to take back the power in the situation and just give ourselves that positivity back that we are doing something. So that was another thing that I was able to do that I'd just forgotten about, I'd just completely forgotten. And these are all things I would probably tell somebody else in that situation. And then something which is, I bleat on about this all the time, but it is so freaking powerful, is gratitude. And this comes back to reframing and catching and replacing. And actually, I'm doing the magic this month. It's a 28-day gratitude practice. I've spoken about it on here before. And it's about writing 10 things every day that you're grateful for, why you're grateful for them. And then at night, you show gratitude for the best thing that's happened in your day and why. And also each day there's a different focus, a different practice. And interestingly, the day that I'm recording this, which is the day after the incident had happened with my husband's work contract, it's a day about not being negative, not having negative thoughts, catching and replacing negative thoughts, and also showing gratitude for a negative situation in your life. So on the night that it happened, we sat down and we made a list of 10 things that he was grateful for and that we were grateful for in that situation. The learning, the exposure that he'd had to different people in cross functions in his business, the opportunity to grow, all of the things that had happened through that process that we hadn't necessarily taken time to be grateful for, because you don't until something's over, do you? You don't really reflect and look back whilst you're in it. It's something that maybe you do, but it's more likely to happen at the end or when something has gone tits up. So we took time to do that, and it really, really made us realise that even though the result wasn't what he wanted and what we had anticipated, and it had changed the course of action now that he was able to take, that actually there was a lot within that whole process. And it goes back to what I've spoken about before, about it's the journey. It's not the end goal. It's the journey and the process that shapes you. And he had got so much out of that, despite not being aware of it or not consciously reflecting on that at the time. So that was a really, really powerful practice to do, to not only change our mindset, but actually, really highlight what it was that we were grateful for, and to put just a different lens on the situation. And actually, the next day after doing all of this and after creating that change in our mindset, we both woke up feeling really differently about the whole situation, and actually having put it into context with other stuff that we've dealt with and are dealing with. Yes, it was a huge deal, and it's probably one of the biggest losses, or I guess, difficulties, challenges that he could have faced in his current job. But nobody died, and just taking the time to lean on some of those tools and to do some of those reframing and positive mindset activities and exercises, it really did make a difference, rather than just spiraling and waking up again the day after and being in that kind of, pit of despair and everything being wrong. And then it's that thing with your reticular activating system that, again, I've got episodes on, but your RAS is your filter for the world. So if you're looking at things through a negative lens, everything is going to seem negative. You're going to pick up on the fact that you spilt a bit of coffee, or that you're running late, or that your emails won't open, or there's every little tiny thing then that you have that is potentially a tiny challenge or a slight negative is going to be amplified by the fact that you're in that shitty mindset of nothing's going right for me and nothing works and life's shit. I do appreciate that this isn't necessarily stuff that you can do for every single challenge or difficulty that you face, because some things are just crap and you need to take time to process them. But it is something that you can do in every situation, just maybe not straight away, just maybe not in the time frame that we did it. It depends on the severity, it depends on what it is that it's impacted. And sometimes it might take a day or two of you just dwelling in the shittiness and negativity of it all before you're prepared to or able to look at what tools do I have to change this and create that sense of control and positive framing that I need to. But I just thought that was so interesting, because actually, as somebody who is heavily invested in my own self-development and really, enjoys trying to find ways to deal with life, it really threw me that day. And I did end up just spiraling for a good, 20, 30 minutes when something happened. And it happens to us all, but it was good to chat that through and to get it reframed by somebody else. And also just to remind myself that, none of the stuff that Rebecca spoke me through was new to me. None of it wasn't like this amazing technology tool or something that I was like, oh my God, how do you know about that? It was just reminders of all the stuff that I've done and learned about and had exposure to before, but completely forgot to bring out of my toolkit when it really mattered. So if you're going through a tough time, if you've had bad news, if anything has happened that has made an impact on you and you are feeling shit about it, try and do some of the things that I've just mentioned. Take back that control, reframe it, look at all the positives and the gratitudes and put it into context. None of us that I'm aware that are listening to this are walking out of our house and having bombs dropped on us or scared that our family's going to get kidnapped. Yes, it's all relative, but actually, when you do put context around it and a bit of perspective on it, it's all manageable. And you can come back from adversity and probably have come back from worse things than what you're coping with right now or in that moment. It just doesn't feel like it. And the other thing to remember is we are all still caveman brains in essence, and the email or the text or the piece of news that we get that makes us go into fight or flight and floods our body with cortisol and makes us feel like we're going to die is just a response to trigger. And back in the caveman days, that trigger was a life or death scenario. It was a predator or something that could kill us. And we've just not evolved yet in terms of the human brain to really know the difference between that now. So our body just has a natural physiological reaction. And that's what it felt like on that day. Everything just spiraled and it felt like I went into huge fight or flight mode. So think about how you can change your mindset, maybe what you can do to create space in the moment when things aren't going your way or you do get bad news, and give yourself the time. Yes, you can feel like shit about stuff, but dwelling in it for too long isn't going to help you. It's not going to help anyone, and it never gets you to a better, more productive, more positive place. It just doesn't. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I have some very exciting news. So I was talking to another mentor of mine the other day and about, I guess, how much I enjoy doing the podcast and about business. And he was like, why are you not doing a business podcast? Like, why are you not talking to people in your sector, founders, brand owners, business leaders, and doing another podcast that is sector relevant? Because it's great for your personal brand and also something that you love. And I was like, why aren't I? I think it's just a time thing, but you make space for stuff, right? So I am going to be launching another podcast. I will put a link to it on here once it is. I've got the first. I'm going to record a few episodes first with guests. It's all going to be guest interviews, and it will be health and well-being brands in the consumer space that are growing, that are scaling, and really interesting discussions with their founders and leaders about their growth challenges and their why. And yeah, all things kind of brand and business. So that might not be your thing. You might be like, Nikki, couldn't be asked about that at all. Couldn't give less of a shit. I'm just here for the self-development. Absolutely fine. But if that is your thing, then keep your eyes peeled, because I'm going to be launching it over the next few weeks, and I will definitely let you guys know and put a link on the show notes when it's out. So I hope you enjoyed that. As always, please do go and show some love, follow, like, rate, review, all of the above, and I will see you all again next Sunday. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at HelloSundayPod, or you can email us on hellosundaypod@outlook.com. Have a great week.